I don't think we're going to see a recession in 2016, but it's really just a question of when the next one strikes.
What's your sense of the degree to which candidates are thinking about this and planning for what will happen in the next recession, whether that's planning for new fiscal policy, planning what to do next?
Well, you don't hear either Secretary Clinton or Mr. Trump use the word recession very often, but you do hear a great deal of talk about getting the U.S. economy to grow more strongly, to create more jobs, and to strengthen itself. And lots of ideas. Secretary Clinton's talked at great length about those ideas on ways to do that, from college affordability to infrastructure and so on. So I don't believe either candidate is actually expecting to face a recession over the short term, and I think they're right about that. But the types of policies they're talking about for strengthening the U.S. economy, many of them would also apply to fighting recession.
Is this something that you're interested in re-engaging with yourself here in the public sector? Would you consider a return to the Treasury Department?
No. I've reached I've reached an age which I didn't think about a lot until recently, and that's an arena for younger people.
Let me go back to the Fed minutes which came out last week, and what emerged from them was a seeming disconnect between Federal Reserve policymakers and market participants like yourself with investors. What do you think accounts for that disconnect, at least as the Fed sees it?
Well, I think that's a pretty normal state of affairs. You know, the market broadly was expecting a maximum of 2 rate hikes for the rest of the year, and not before July. And many in the market thinking there might only be 1. Now the perception is that there will be at least 2 rate hikes, and the first may occur in June. But no one precisely knows because, as the Fed so often says, they are, quote, data dependent, unquote, meaning that the decision will be made based on the very latest data available at the time they might make it. So if they were to consider this in June, it would depend on the data they had from the weeks leading right up to that date. So I don't think this is a big disconnect by historical standards. It's a standard ebb and flow of thinking as people study the Fed.
It seems like when you look at the Fed now, when you look at those policymakers, there's a new divide shaping up between those who are interested primarily in the domestic economy and those who are worried about global risk. And I just want to get your perspective on the global economy, looking at Europe, looking at China, sort of what's of greatest concern to you?
Well, one of the really ironic things about the global economy today is the degree to which it is so different than everyone expected it would be only 2 years ago. 2 years ago, if you go back and look at the research reports, you would have seen an expectation that the big emerging markets, Brazil, Russia, China, would be leading the world in terms of growth. They would be the engine of growth, pulling the world forward. Today, it's the opposite. Brazil is in recession, Russia is in recession, China has slowed, and that expectation has proved to be way off. So today, the United States has the best growth dynamics among really major countries and advanced countries. And that was the opposite of what was expected a couple of years ago. Now, if you're at the Fed and you're involved in monetary policy, you have to be sensitive to global factors because they affect financial markets, and financial markets have a lot to do with stability. Remember, one of the Fed's several different missions is stability. And so you have to pay attention to global financial markets, and underneath global financial markets, you have the performance of the countries themselves. For much of the past year, different points of view about China and different moves in China's own financial markets have driven much of global financial markets. So I don't believe you can be at the Fed and be involved in monetary policy without paying very close attention to global factors. There's no ability to just look at the U.S.